Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Leah College, an investment counselor here at RealWealth. And today's weekly webinar is all about how RealWealth can help you invest in real estate. Every week, I have the pleasure of talking with investors, newbies, very seasoned investors, investors who, frankly, are at places where I aspire to be someday. But all the time, I realize that a lot of people aren't super clear on how to leverage the resources at RealWealth. And so this presentation today is all about teaching you what we do here at RealWealth for you, how we help you, how you can leverage the time and effort that we put into, teeing up resources for you, education, relationships. So thank you so much for joining us or watching this replay to learn a little bit more about how RealWealth can help you along in your investing journey. So real quick, we will get into our disclaimer. The strategies that we might talk about today, they might not be appropriate for your specific situation. So be sure, as with any large financial decision, consult with your accountant, your tax advisor, and or your attorney to discuss your specific situation to determine whether real estate is even right for you. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Real estate purchases are subject to investment risks. I don't think people emphasize this enough. Real estate is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It comes with some challenges. You can buy a property or two, and it might not go how you think it's going to go. So just keep that in mind. You can lose the money that you invest in real estate. So I'll make every effort today to give you accurate information, but know that the possibility of errors and updates always exists. So for those of you who don't know me, I thought a little introduction to my investing background. Yes, I work at RealWealth as an investment counselor, but I am an investor as well. I actually was a member of RealWealth, investing through RealWealth property teams for many years before I became an employee of RealWealth. And I want to share with you a little bit of my background that kind of brought me to that. First, I'm married to an active duty Army officer, and this has given us the great privilege of living in so many different amazing places. We've lived in Asia, we lived in Europe and South America, we've lived on the East Coast, the West Coast. We're currently living in Texas and San Antonio. And it really was my husband's military career that I think introduced us to an interest in real estate. Our very first duty station, we were just smart enough to learn that, the price to own a property in this small town where the Army had sent us to was actually less than the cost to rent in that market. And we knew we were going to be there for a short period of time. So we decided, hey, let's buy this property for $750 a month. And then we'll leave in a year and a half. We'll hang on to it as a rental, and it rents for $950 or $1,000 a month. And that's how we got our start into real estate investing. It was leveraging a primary home with the plan to relocate with a military assignment and just hang on to it. So that's what we did. We fast forward a couple years, and we were doing everything right, I think, to plan for our retirement, maxing out 401ks and IRAs. But at some point, we became aware of time and how quickly it was passing, and realized that we might want to retire sooner than 59 and a half. And all of this money that we were socking away in our 401ks and our IRAs, we couldn't touch it until we reached that age. And so we really started looking into our own life and our own personal finances and went, okay, we gotta create independent income for ourselves. And we looked back on that rental that we had all these years and how it was performing and how it was giving us cash flow every month, and a lot of principal pay down had been accruing. And so we decided to be a little more intentional. We had flipped a house. We did a live-in flip at another assignment and freed up a bunch of capital, and just really decided to get serious about this strategy of scaling our own rental portfolio. At the time, we were relocating to Europe. And so our first thought was, oh, let's go back to the market that we first bought in, that small town, because we knew it, we had connections there. And we found a foreclosure property there from Europe. We bought it. And long distance, we were overseeing a renovation on this property. Now, it wasn't a super extensive renovation, but it was stressful to oversee contractors and work being done from the other side of the world. And I'm happy to say that it worked. It was successful. We didn't force enough equity in the property to justify a cash out refinance, so it wasn't a true BRRRR, if you will, but what it did reveal to us was that, one, we wanted to be more passive. We had to be more passive. We were both working full-time W-2 jobs elsewhere and spending our evenings overseeing a renovation project. It was just too much. So we kind of started looking for companies like RealWealth who could do all that for us. And so we connected with RealWealth from Europe and started just educating, and I think unlocked this inner passion in both of us for buy and hold property, and doing so passively and completely remotely. So in that first year of kind of discovering RealWealth, we scaled our portfolio pretty heavily and went into a bunch of new markets. So right now I invest in Texas and Florida for more appreciation. And then I invest in Ohio and Alabama for better cash flow. So I like the diversification of the different market types. So I share that story just so that you can kind of see my thought process and how I came into this. There are so many different ways to make money in real estate. I think that's one of the reasons why I love it, is it's not a one-size-fits-all model. And investing in turnkey property, investing in a passive manner, for me, has been a great way to pursue my passion and my interest with my 9-to-5, but then throw that cash that I earn into cash flowing assets in the most passive way possible. So that's a little bit about me. This leads you to kind of RealWealth and the story of RealWealth. These are our founders here, Rich and Kathy Fecky. If you're watching this, you probably recognize their faces. Rich and Kathy are very well connected in the real estate investing space. Kathy is one of the pioneers in the podcast space, podcasting before it was called podcasting. Had a radio show in the San Francisco Bay Area, really just became known for breaking down what were formerly really complex principles into very easy, digestible strategies for regular people to buy investment property. And the whole premise, or the whole goal of RealWealth, is to help people create more freedom in their lives. We believe that wealth, it's in our name, real wealth, is about having freedom. It's about having time. It's about having the resources that you need to live life on your own terms. And we think that real estate is one of the best vehicles to do that. So naturally, it's I think one of the best asset classes for creating real wealth in your life. And frankly, I ask myself all the time, I love this stuff. I'm kind of obsessed with it. But I ask myself all the time, I say, like, why isn't everybody doing this? It seems so obvious now that I'm entrenched in it. And the answer is there's a big learning curve. And that can be really intimidating for a lot of people. There's also lots of different ways to do it. And so I think a lot of people get stuck searching for the right way to real estate invest, and there isn't one. So here at RealWealth, we're committed to simplifying this process, and really primarily for that passive investor. So here's what we do at RealWealth. We help you get the information that you need to make informed investing decisions. We are really adamant that you understand what it is you're doing. We want you to have a financial literacy that you understand, and that allows you to analyze markets, analyze property, and understand why this strategy will ultimately result in real wealth for you and more freedom for you. So we dedicate a lot of time to producing education and resources to all create a more informed investor. Then secondly, we help our members passively build a portfolio of rental properties for long-term buy and hold. And we'll talk a little bit about how we help, but it's really that two-part. We're educating you, teaching you these fundamentals, and then connecting you with resources and people that can help you get the strategy going and purchase property in select markets. All the while, we are here to offer guidance and support. Like I mentioned, I'm an investment counselor here at RealWealth. We have two others, Joe Torrey and Aristotle Compass. They are both investors as well, with similar stories and backgrounds about why they love real estate. They have their own portfolios that they're growing. So we provide you some of that strategic coaching on how to take next steps. Now, we're not mentors or gurus, but we are there to be kind of a sounding board of, hey, yeah, this makes sense, or hey, based on your life circumstances, I think you should probably be thinking about XYZ in your market analysis. And I would probably recommend you choose, this market type over this market type, just to give you that guidance along your own journey. What we don't do, this is really important, we don't teach you how to flip properties. We promote a passive investing strategy. We don't teach people how to BRRRR. We're fans of it. I think it's a great strategy. It's just not what we do. We don't sell you expensive courses on education. There's a lot of companies out there that are monetizing their businesses through selling training programs. We don't do that. We make it all for free. We've got endless videos. Again, I'll show you where some of this information lives today, but we provide you all this information for free. And we don't partner with our members to help you acquire properties. So our mission in the RealWealth Realty, the referral brokerage, is that you would own the properties yourself, right? So you are coming in as an individual. It's a standard transaction. At the end of the day, you own this house on your own. We don't partner with you, though we do have a separate syndications company if you're looking for syndication projects. But RealWealth Realty, we're focused on helping you own that property as an individual. How we do it? We tee up tons of education for you. Every week we're hosting a live webinar. We alternate between market webinars and education webinars like this one. We produce all of this. We have a whole team of investors that are brainstorming and listening to podcasts out there and kind of keeping an ear to what is happening in our investing space. And then we're building programming on those insights. So we bring you these education content as it's relevant to our industry. We offer strategy assistance from experienced investors, those investment counselors. When you become a member of RealWealth, you're automatically assigned an investment counselor. So you have the ability to connect with them. And then we refer you to resource partners that can help you with everything from financing the property to property acquisition to property management. Now, it's all free. There's no cost to you. And so naturally, everybody's next question is, okay, well, how do you get paid? You're not doing this just for fun, though I might, I don't know. As a referral company, we receive referral fees from the property teams that we refer you to when you purchase a property. So it's the property team that's paying essentially for the lead, for investors who are educated, for investors who are wanting to buy scale. So it doesn't cost you anything. That's how we're able to offer all the services that we do to you for free. It's monetized in the purchase from the property teams. So we have two websites. This is where we put a lot of our content, our information. RealWealth.com is our homepage. This is our daddy website. This is where you'll find all of our education resources, tons of market data. This is a great hub. And then the Realty Portal is once you log in to RealWealth.com, you get inner access to RealWealth. The realty.realwealth.com, we call this our investor portal or the Realty Portal. This is where you'll find additional information about who the teams are that we work with in our specific markets. This is where we make it easy for you to connect with your investment counselor. So these are your two hotspots, and definitely realty.realwealth.com is where you want to go for all of our proprietary information. So these are some guided photos of the website. This is what it looks like when you log into the Realty Portal. And I'm going to walk you through how to use some of our menu systems so that you can see where we put some of that information. Again, if you're looking for properties, if you're looking for the team that we work with, you have to be logged in to see that information. So up at the top, you'll see the menu bar there. First and foremost, we'll start with education because that's the starting point. We have a library here of all of our education resources. Hover over education learning topics. We've got them broken down by category. So if you're looking for information on tax strategies, you can click on tax strategies down there, and it will show you our entire list of education resources about tax strategies. This includes articles, blog posts, webinars, podcasts, you name it. They're all categorized by topic there. If you're ever looking for, or I guess speaking of the podcast, we've got the links right here to the two podcasts that Kathy Fettke does, the Real Wealth Show, which is excellent. If you haven't subscribed to the Real Wealth Show, you definitely should. And then we have real estate news for investors. Real estate news for investors is a quick, I call it kind of a commute podcast. It's a quick 15-minute or shorter segment that kind of hits the news headlines and its implication for real estate investors. So both are great podcasts for you to be listening to and subscribe to. We've got investor downloads here. You can find the link to schedule a strategy session with your investment counselor right there. And then if you're ever looking for a recent webinar, you can find them under the recent webinar replay section here. I get this question all the time for people who couldn't make it onto these live presentations, but they want to catch the replay. We always kind of keep a little running list of the most recent classes there for you to check out. So as you can see, just last week we did a webinar with Baltimore, known for its awesome cash flow. Okay, the resources section. Under resources, this is where you can find a curated list of experts who specialize in their respective areas. Now, I've got to tell you, we're pretty picky about our resource list, just like we are about selecting property teams and markets. We go out and look for some of the best vendors in these respective spaces. First and foremost, we want them to have a specialization in working with real estate investors. We're not just looking for any lender that can do a home loan. We're looking for lenders who work and deal primarily with real estate investors. They speak our language. They know what our long-term strategy is. So we've got a list here for you of conventional lenders, non-conventional lenders, non-recourse lenders. These are all of our preferred resource partners. Then, of course, if you're doing a 1031 exchange, we've got 1031 exchange facilitators, attorneys who all specialize in asset protection and entity formation, accounting services. Again, everybody on this list specializes in working with people like you. So I wanted to show you from that resources page, I selected Ridge Lending Group, who is one of our preferred lenders. Ridge actually does conventional and non-conventional loans. I've worked with them personally on many of my own acquisitions. They're excellent. When you click on a resource partner, it's going to take you, it's going to default to the Connect tab right here, and that's where you'll find the contact information for Ridge Lending Group. But you can toggle over to education, and this is a archive list for you of all of the past education webinars that we've done with Ridge Lending Group. So this is one that I did with Chaley, the owner of Ridge Lending Group, just a couple weeks ago, where we talked all about non-QM loan products and just the changing tides of the lending space. So keep that in mind. You can go and find additional education resources presented by each of these resource partners. I tell people, you know, check out, you get to kind of check out these people before you give them a cold call and see if you want to work with them. Okay, and this is how you find the market pages. So if you hover on the menu at the top, you can hover over single family rentals, multifamily rentals, or new construction, and you'll see this subsequent drop-down menu here of all of our markets listed. So these lists of markets, I mean, this is not an all-inclusive list of every market that's good for investors. There's plenty. There's probably an endless list of markets that work for buy and hold. But if they're on this list, that tells you that RealWealth has connections there, and we have a well-worn path for acquiring property and managing property passively through property managers in that particular market. So hover over any of these three, depending on the product type that you're interested in. And then you can select the team name that you'll see right under the market that you're interested in. So to show you, I'm going to pull up the Baltimore page here because we just had that webinar with Baltimore last week. Baltimore is an awesome market for cash flow. This is where you can come to see the most recent webinar that we did with the property team. So when you visit a property team page, it defaults to the Meet the Team tab, and this is actually an edited video of the webinar. So once you've been around RealWealth for a while, you maybe don't want to watch the full hour-long webinar with the Baltimore team. Maybe you just want to skip around and just check out the new sample properties. Or maybe you just want to come back and get a refresher on the voucher program because this team specializes in Section 8. So this is your way. I always say this is kind of how you speed date who we work with in a market, get to know them while kind of being anonymous. You get to learn, you know, what is their investing philosophy. Why is this market a good market for buy and hold investors? What is kind of the profile of the market, return expectation? We talk about all of that in those market webinars. And then, of course, anything that's unique about the market, you'll get the lowdown on that. Sample properties, we talk about deals that they currently had available. We study pro formas together. We ask questions about the products. So again, this is your way. We have below this, if you scroll down, there's property management videos, so you can get a feel for their management fees, their tenant screening process. And then of course, with all of our webinars, we open them up for Q&A so that people who are on live can ask questions. And we record all those so that you can see what other investors are asking. These are incredible education tools. Even if you're not interested in investing in Baltimore, I think you should watch these webinars because you will learn something that might be applicable in another market. Then you can, of course, navigate here through the sidebar, study those sample properties in more detail there. If you click on Get Pre-Approved, this is where you can find information about the preferred lenders. Insider tips, this is a quick write-up on what we think about this market and the team. And then when you're ready to connect, because ultimately that's the next step. When you like a market, you've studied all this information, you wanna reach out to the team to get access to their real-time inventory, which is changing daily. You click on this Connect with the Team tab, and that will show you their contact information. All right, and then you can always make edits to your account here by hovering over My Account. You can update your email settings. We send out weekly newsletters where we summarize all of our content for the week. You can update those settings if you want more or less contact from us. You can see who your investment counselor is. As I mentioned, when you become a member of RealWealth, you're assigned an investment counselor. If you're on this webinar live, the email invite for this webinar came from your investment counselor. So that should tell you who you're assigned to so that you can reach out to them and get connected for a strategy session. There they are. Aristotle Compass, myself, and Joe Torrey. All of our email addresses are first name, Leah, at realwealth.com. So again, think about who this email invite came from, or when you first became a member of RealWealth, we all send welcome emails, kind of introducing ourselves. We'd love to interact with you guys and support you in your investing journey and help you get started because it can be kind of intimidating. So on that note, let's talk about getting started. I think it is so important for real estate investors to have an idea about what they want out of this. I always say this because there's a lot of pressure, I think, in the real estate space to be a real estate entrepreneur. And you don't have to be. You don't have to have some gigantic strategy of going out and, sourcing property through wholesalers or becoming a wholesaler and having your own crews and renovating them and then either flipping them or selling to other investors. That's great. I'm glad there's people like that. I'm happy to buy from those people, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to aspire to do that. But what's important is that you know for you where you want this investing strategy to go. Having that clear goal helps us turn our goals into reality. Real quick, I want to mention the power of our brains. Our brains are very malleable. And if you've heard Rich Fecky give his focused investor class, which he does every year, kind of teaching us the power of our minds and the power of focusing on what we want as investors and just as individuals. But he talks about the reticular activating system, which is that part of our brain stem that helps us filter out all the noise, all the things that don't matter to us, and with the things that do matter to us. And so by verbalizing our goals or by writing our goals down or by meditating on our goals or just having a general consciousness about our goals, we're fine-tuning and training our reticular activating system to filter out the things that don't matter and let us see the things that do. This is why as soon as you decide you want the cool new Broncos, you suddenly start seeing cool new Broncos everywhere. The car, and it's not because the Broncos weren't there before, it's that you have trained your reticular activating system to focus on the cool new Bronco. Same thing in real estate, and I think I've seen this in my own investing career. My husband and I have gotten very intentional about sitting down every year and thinking about where do we want our portfolio to go? How many acquisitions do we want to have this year? What do we want to refine? What do we want to change? And it's through writing them down and then having regular conversation about our process and where we're at, that our brains are tuned in to ways that we can make that happen. So setting a goal, I think, is first and foremost for all of us to get started on this journey and certainly to end up where we want to be. The how becomes a little more complicated. Ultimately, you got to have gas in the tank. You can want to go somewhere really bad, but if you don't put gas in the tank, you're just thinking about it. So the how does matter. Hear me say that. And so real quick, the method for acquiring property, and especially acquiring property as a passive investor, it's going to require some cash. It's going to require some money. Of course, you have the option, well, some people have the option of purchasing property all cash. You can certainly buy a property with no mortgage. Most of us are using financing. I would challenge people who want to purchase all cash to think about using financing, even though you could afford it. Should you? Leverage boosts returns. So I would certainly urge you and be happy to engage in a conversation with you about financing investment properties instead of purchasing them in cash. And there's a couple different ways that you can finance a property. Conventional loans, non-conventional loans, those loans are slightly different, and depending on where you're at in your investing process and depending on your employment situation, one might not be an option for you. Conventional lending has very stringent guidelines to qualify for those loans. But just because you have a low credit score or just because you had a break in employment doesn't mean you can't invest through non-conventional loan products. A HELOC, a lot of people are sitting on a lot of equity in their primary homes these days. So I'm talking to a lot of investors who are choosing to take HELOCs out on their primary homes or even investment homes. Second lien HELOCs are a little bit more rare, but it's possible. And so a lot of people are taking HELOCs on their homes and using that cash to invest. And then you can also invest by self-directing your IRA. This is, I think, becoming more mainstream known now that you can self-direct a retirement account, and we have great resources to help you set up a self-directed IRA. And you can even use leverage within a self-directed IRA. It requires a special loan product. You've got to use a no recourse loan, which we have some no recourse lenders that we can recommend you to, but these are kind of the primary ways that people are financing their investments. What is it going to take? So let's assume that you are wanting to use leverage, you're wanting to use financing. I get this question a lot from people like, well, how much do I need to have? And the answer, of course, is it depends on how expensive you want to go. At a minimum, you're going to have to put 20% down on an investment property. Occasionally, you might find that you could put 15% down and pay PMI, or you might be able to find some type of owner financing deal. But if you're working with a conventional lender, they're going to require you put 20% down on an investment property. So I tell people kind of back into how much money you need. The cheapest properties that we see at RealWealth through our property teams are today, they're probably about $90,000, I would say. Occasionally I see some that are in the high 80s, but there's fewer today than there used to be. So let's say you want to buy a $100,000 property, being a good kind of medium. 20% down is a $20,000 down payment, plus closing costs, which are estimated somewhere between 2 to 5% of the purchase price. So that's, say, another $5,000 conservatively. And then you definitely don't want to spend your last penny on the down payment and closing costs. You've got to have some reserves. The bank is going to require that you have some reserves. And again, you should probably have, that's our suggestion there is 3%. For me, that'd be a little tight. So I would say at least another $5,000 to $10,000 in the bank to feel comfortable about purchasing an investment property. So that's how I came into that $35,000 minimum. If you're purchasing a home somewhere between $100,000 and $120,000, that's about the amount of cash that would be required to purchase it passively. If that's all you have, I would probably say you're not ready to buy an investment property. Save up a little bit more. Real estate, it has costs, and those costs can be pretty volatile. Especially with these cheaper homes, these $100,000 homes, these aren't new. These are older homes in most cases. And even if they've just been fully renovated, there is a possibility that you could have vacancy right up front, or that you could have a tree fall on something and it not be covered by insurance. You might have expenses. And so the last thing you want is for your investing strategy to be jeopardizing or challenging your personal finance and the way that you live and how you provide for your children. So be conservative in the amount of cash that you have. Here are the RealWealth markets, a little map for you to see where we currently have property teams. You see we got up in Chicago, Indianapolis. We've got 2 markets in Ohio. We're in Cleveland and Cincinnati. Baltimore, Maryland, as I mentioned, Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama. Now moving down into Florida, we actually have lots of activity in Florida. We have, I think, 4 or 5 teams that we work with for deals in the state of Florida. So, but to keep it simple, we refer to them as a Jacksonville team. We've got a team in Central Florida, Orlando area, and then we have a team in Tampa, Florida. And then of course, Dallas, Fort Worth. So again, not an all-inclusive list of good markets to invest, but this is where we have connections. And I'm really happy to say that RealWealth property teams, the turnover is it's pretty low. We have a pretty lengthy vetting process that we put teams through when we're onboarding them and creating a new relationship in a market. And so we don't just work with anybody in a market. We don't just go work with any investor or flipper in a market that wants to flip to our investors. We're very cautious about who we work with and selective. And we go visit the market and we meet the team and we understand their operations and we look at the things that as an individual investor, I would want to look at if I'm considering investing with that team. And I'm proud to say that many of the teams that we've worked with now, we've worked with for over a decade. The vast majority of them, we have, at least an 8-year track record with. The newest team, actually, I can't say this anymore. I was going to say the newest team is our Baltimore team, and we're going on 3.5 years with them now. But we just onboarded a brand new team in Cleveland. We're keeping them kind of close hold for a little bit, only releasing them to experienced investors so that we can get to know their operations from a real-time feedback perspective. So they will be our newest team soon to be open to our full membership. Okay, so, a lot of people look at this map and they're like, okay, great, you've narrowed it down. There's still a lot of options here. How do I choose a market? Do I throw a dart at this map and that's where I go? Honestly, you might be able to. It's probably too cavalier for me to even say that real estate works. You work with a great team. Where you do it, in my opinion, is less important than the fact that you do it. But there is a process to kind of analyzing a market and choosing one that's right for you. So these are some of the factors that investment counselors and that you might ask yourself to help you narrow down our list of market choices. First, how much money do you have available to invest? In that first minimum example, I said you got to have about $35,000. Well, that's enough to get into our linear markets, our more cash flow focused markets. So it kind of eliminates Florida. It eliminates Texas for the most part. It certainly eliminates our team in Charlotte and Atlanta. So you're focusing on the markets in the Midwest if you've got that lower capital available. So that might be kind of a guiding factor, number one, of what you can afford. The second is, are you looking for more cash flow in day one, or are you looking for more appreciation potential? Now, we're pretty conservative in what we consider appreciation potential, right? We are not 100% speculative, meaning we are not just only chasing appreciation. So you won't see markets on our list, in the West Coast, markets that just cash flow is impossible. Our appreciation markets still have some cash flow. They at least cover all of your expenses. So depending on kind of your priorities for return, let's say you're a millennial, you're hitting your stride in your career, you love it, you're making great income. You don't really need the cash flow today, but you want to be building a portfolio for retirement planning, or you want to just start building up, replacement income over time. Well, then you might choose to focus on a growth markets that have more appreciation potential. You don't need the cash flow today. Whereas maybe if you are older and you are already really trying to focus on income streams, you either need to replace an income fast, you might choose to focus on a cash flow market where properties are cheaper, your money can go a little bit further, rent to value ratios are higher, which means better cash flow for the investor. So depending on what it is, you might choose one market type over another market type. Single family versus multifamily, there's pros and cons to both. I do both. I kind of like to diversify across markets and property types, but that could be a deciding factor for where you choose. If you love multifamily, the markets that have multifamilies right now, our Indianapolis team has some multifamily. Cleveland will have some multifamily. Our Jacksonville provider has some great new construction multifamily. Chicago is known for its multifamily. Everything else is mostly single family. What kind of inventory does the market have? That can be a deciding factor. If you're doing a 1031 exchange and you need to identify a specific number of property, well, I might steer you away from this market over here, not because they aren't awesome, but because I know from looking at their inventory every day, they don't have enough deals to satisfy your exchange. So definitely, knowing the volume of their inventory, but also knowing, again, the type of inventory that they have. If this team, like the team in Charlotte that we work with, for example, they only have new construction. So if you don't want new construction for, whatever reason, I would tell you we can't help you with deals in Charlotte because our team only does new construction there. So that could be a determining factor. And then, of course, your risk tolerance. Some teams that we work with, they might focus more on, A-class property. Some might focus more on, C+ property. None of our teams go much lower than C+. When you get, lower than that, your risk factor goes up tremendously. And frankly, most of our teams don't want to manage that challenging asset class. So, if just take a gut check. If like, hey, I have a very low tolerance for risk. The idea of a tenant having financial problems, the idea of a tenant being really rough and destructive on my property, or the idea of a 120-year-old home, these are just things that are beyond my risk tolerance. Well, then let's talk about it and let's eliminate those markets that have that property type that we know is going to be you can't stomach. So these are just some of the questions that in our strategy sessions with investors, we're asking you to try to help you kind of narrow down the list and zoom in on a market that might be the best match for you initially. Okay, so the next process is, kind of the steps for getting into a deal. And so I want to let you know, oh, there you go. Sorry, my transition slide is out of order here. The investing process, knowing what steps to take and in what order can be kind of daunting. And we have put together an investor checklist. You can find this on our website. I'm going to go back now because this is where you find the investor checklist. When you're logged into the portal, go to education and then down under investor downloads, you'll find that investor checklist there. But we put this together as experienced investors to kind of help you in true checkbox fashion move through our process, right? So this is a great guide, everything from starting, educating and learning about different acquisition strategies to contracting the property, to ordering inspections and appraisals. There's even a supplementary page to this checklist that we created all about inspections. So we list all of the additional inspections that you might tack on to a full home inspection. But this is a great guide that we have teed up for you guys to help you through the RealWealth process. But in kind of summary, to kind of give you some actionable steps here from this webinar, I want to kind of guide you through generally what the process is at RealWealth and just more generally in owning a passive investment. I always tell people, the first step really, even before educating yourself, is to understand if this is a feasible strategy for you. Getting pre-approved with a lender, at least having a conversation with a lender to understand, like, do I have sufficient capital to invest? Do I have a debt to income ratio that allows me to qualify for conventional loans? The financing conversation gives parameters to what you're looking for, right? Or it certainly gives parameters to your timeline. An early conversation with a lender could tell you, okay, well, I need to improve my credit, number one, and maybe my debt to income ratio is kind of tight. So I need to pay off those credit cards first, or I need to pay off my car loan first to create the space that I need to acquire an investment property with leverage, with a mortgage. So definitely prioritize having a conversation with a lender It's backwards from the way that we do it when we're shopping for primary homes. I feel like everybody starts shopping for homes first before you talk to a lender. With investment property, you definitely want to prioritize that financing conversation. And you don't have to know where you want to invest first. Again, the lenders that we work with are national. So they can do loans in any of the markets that we have property teams in. If at the same time you're simultaneously educating yourself on our platform, taking advantage of the podcasts, watching the webinars that we produce weekly, reading the articles that our content team is creating, looking at the market pages on the Realty Portal, learning from the different property team owners, that is invaluable to your progress. You're learning from people in real time who are doing this, and doing it in markets where you now have connections. The third, connect with your investment counselor. We can help you narrow down your list of markets. We can help you kind of address some of the hangups that maybe you're stuck on. I all the time help people, kind of look at what's stopping them. A lot of times it's asset protection. A lot of times it's wanting more market data, and I can kind of guide you through my logic of why this either is or isn't, or should or shouldn't be a hang up for you, and how you can, keep yourself in a place of action, of moving past analysis paralysis, which gets all of us at some point or another. Your investment counselors that's exactly what we do all the time, is help you guys kind of through that process. Once you've kind of been in this space, okay, I'm connecting with the investment counselor, I'm researching the different markets on the portal, like I'm informed. Ultimately, we're a referral brokerage, right? So we have to connect you with the team in that market that you're interested in. This is where you're going to see the live inventory. Their inventory is changing daily, and they maintain that inventory list. Some of them have Excel give you access to, Dropbox. Some have a weekly email distro they use. It really depends on the company how they share and distribute their inventory. So to get it, we've got to connect you with them, and we make that easy, right? You can go to the portal, click on that connect with the team, shoot the team an email, or schedule a call with them. Or you can always reach out to your investment counselor, and we can offer a personal introduction as well. Tell us how you want it. But we're not meant to be a barrier to progress or a gatekeeper to that information. It's there for you to take action when you are ready. Number 5, visit the markets if this is possible. This is not a requirement. I get asked this all the time. Should I visit the market before I buy there? And I mean, I have a high risk tolerance generally. So I say, the Army asks us to move our lives to different countries without knowing anything about them. So the idea of buying an investment property for 30 or 50 grand, I don't have to go see it. But for some people, they need to see it. They need to get a comfort level. If that helps you, which it can't hurt, travel to the market. Our teams are happy to host you, take you around to see the different areas, get a feel for the neighborhoods, meet the property managers. You're not necessarily going to visit the market to go and pick the specific property you want, but rather you're going kind of on a reconnaissance trip to scope out the area. Go and walk through some of their properties that are currently under renovation or that have just been completed, and make some of your own kind of gut evaluations about quality and whether this is a team and a market that you could see yourself investing in. Ultimately, then, you're getting yourself closer to this point of, okay, I'm monitoring their inventory. I've seen the market or decided I don't need to. Now I'm in the buy seat. It's all about identifying the property. And this is where you want to leverage the local insights and the local experience of the property team in the market. They know the buy box there. They know the neighborhoods. They know the nuances. So identify a property with that team. Let them kind of guide you and steer you towards an asset class or a price point or a neighborhood that might align with your preferences. They're the licensed broker in that local market, so they'll prepare contracts for you. They'll, facilitate the transaction to keep everything moving along. And again, it's a standard transaction. You own the property yourself at the end of the day. And number 7, this is once you've got the property under contract, you're going to order a home inspection and any of the supplemental inspections. If you're purchasing a property that's being renovated, you're not going to order that home inspection until the renovation is complete, right? Your contract is going to have inspection contingencies in it. You need to make sure that your contract has inspection contingencies. so that if you discover something in that inspection that's a deal breaker for you, you can get your earnest money back and terminate the agreement. But you're going to get a home inspection. Even if the property's new, I recommend you get a home inspection. And then order an appraisal. This happens automatically if you're purchasing with a lender. Your lender is going to order the appraisal, but if you're buying in cash, you want to be sure you order one for yourself so that you know you're not grossly overpaying for a property. Okay, and then during the transaction process, this should happen before you close, mind you. You should be connecting with that local property manager. Now, again, at RealWealth, when we go into the market and we build a team in that market, the concept of turnkey is that it's everything, right? It's helping you acquire the property, but then it's managing the property for the lifetime of the investment. So when we refer you to this team, there is a property manager there that has been vetted and that we trust to manage that asset for you. So before you close on that property, you should be introduced to them. And you should start having your own conversation with them. Talk about their onboarding process. Talk about their tenant screening process. Request a copy of their property management agreement so that you can review the terms and, of course, sign it so that they have legal obligation to you to manage that property. After you close on the property, the manager is going to market the property for rent if it's not already tenanted. Some of our teams are placing properties already tenanted, but they're going to market the property, screen your tenants, place the tenants, and then the fun part starts. They manage your tenants for the long term. They set up owners portals where you can go in and view work orders and vendor receipts, and then obviously you get direct deposit checks of the rent checks less any money that you owe, property management fees, and any maintenance that you've had done. So they're going to really facilitate that process for you. So that's entirely too fast to explain this process. We have some extended webinars on this topic where I actually kind of broke down the investor checklist line by line. So if you want to watch that webinar, you can shoot me an email and I'll send you a direct link to it, or you can find it in that education library. But the important thing for you to remember is that we're here for you. Like, this is not new to us. We've all done this many, many times. We know these teams very, very well. Every day we're talking to 3 to 5 investors, at least. And so we're very familiar with what's happening in these markets and the feedback that we're getting. So leverage that. We want to support you through this process and make it easy and transparent, so that you can get on with making real wealth for yourself. So what's next for you? Schedule a strategy session if you haven't already. Find out who your investment counselor is, and connect with us. Scheduling a strategy session is a great way to kind of have that foundational conversation to get you started, and then we can schedule subsequent follow-up conversations as you kind of go through this process. If you're not quite ready to invest, if you're still just kind of not convinced by real estate, I would say, like, you probably don't need to have a strategy session. Though I probably could convince you to start investing. I'm really here to coach the people who want to invest, who are ready to go, and they want to start putting a plan together. So if you're not quite ready, there's a lot of education content that you can continue to learn from. I should have put this in the presentation, but Kathy has an excellent book. Kathy Fecky, our founder, called Retire Rich with Real Estate. It's an excellent beginner level book. And then Rich Fecky actually just released a book. You've probably heard it mentioned around here. We're really proud of him in that book. It's called The Wise Investor. And it's actually a really interesting book about real estate investing. It's told in the form of a parable. So it's a story about, a husband and wife that were kind of finding themselves not loving the rat race. And they found a mentor who started talking to them about real wealth, and creating passive income through real estate. And so you follow this protagonist on their journey for creating their own real wealth. So those two books are great education resources for you to whet your appetite for real estate. But what I want to caution you on, I almost made that a but and is nicer. Or I almost made that, but don't forget to move forward. People get stuck in this educating phase, guys. There's so much content out there, which is great. I love it too. I binge on it all the time, but the reality is sometimes it is paralyzing, and it can cloud your head with too many options. So be easy on yourself. You don't have to have this all figured out. In fact, I think learning by doing is maybe the most effective way to do this. And the sooner you start, the sooner I think you're coming from a place of being really informed and you trust yourself. So definitely be aware of analysis paralysis. Educate, but don't overdo it. Keep yourself moving forward. All right. I want to pop open my questions panel here and see what kind of questions have come in as we've been doing this. If you're on and you've got a question, we've got about 10 minutes or so that we can dive into some of them. So let's work through a few of these. Yes, a couple questions. We did have some turnover with investment counselors, and we have reassigned everybody. So if you previously had an investment counselor that is no longer here, you have been reassigned to one of us that is still here. So again, that you got for this webinar came from your new investment counselor. And you should be able to log into your account and hover over that education and see the link down at the bottom for your investment counselor. If you can't figure it out, an email, Leah@RealWealth, and I'll find out who yours is and introduce you. Okay, Todd says, do you recommend an SFR or a duplex for a first-time investor? You know, Todd, I don't have like strong opinions about this. I think that there's certainly a beginner can go right after a duplex right out of the gate. There's no reason not to, I think. I think for some it becomes a matter of like need necessary capital for a duplex. They tend to cost a little bit more than a single family would. So for some, that larger down payment requirement, you know, to them, they equate that to risk, right? I don't want to put that much money out there until on a strategy that I'm not sure I know I like. So for that reason, I kind of say single family homes is a great place to start. It's a lower barrier to entry. I also like that single family homes are a little more liquid, meaning that let's say you hate it. Let's say you don't like out-of-state investing, you don't like owning rental property, and you want to sell it. When you go to sell a multifamily, you're selling to another investor, most likely. And there's fewer of them, right? And investors, let's be honest, are stingy and they want the best price and they want you to fix everything. And so you might not get top dollar and it might be on the market a little bit longer when you go to sell it, maybe. A single family home, you could sell it to an owner occupant, you might sell it to another investor. So you just have more options. There's more buyers to buy that single family asset. For that reason, you get more comps on, so appreciation can be a little bit more lucrative too. It really just depends. I started with single family. I love single family. I actually only have one multifamily property and it's awesome. But it was, I never would have started with that. It was a bridge too far at that point. So yeah, I hope that helps. Jeff says, due to the delays in construction and increasing interest rates, do the delays in construction and increasing interest rates deter people from getting started? Yeah, Jeff, it has. There is a mental hurdle right now. Interest rates, it's just, that is, I think now the elephant in the room is the interest rates, and a lot of people are letting that be enough of a reason to not invest. Look, I'm investing for long term. I'm investing for big picture fundamentals, right? I want principal pay down. I want long-term appreciation. I want to hedge against inflation. I want the tax benefits. I want all of these aspects. And you know, a couple extra percentage points in my rate, yes, it might affect my cash flow a little bit in the first couple years. But again, for me, I'm thinking long-term, I'm thinking big picture. I don't let it stop me. I don't think it should stop you, but for some people, it is an eliminator. I mean, at some point, you could get priced out of a market simply based on debt to income ratios, right? Interest rates go up just enough, your monthly cost is higher, and your DTI can't bear it. So it could be an inhibitor. The construction delays, I think the construction delays are getting a little bit better. There's a lot of real wealth investors who've had new construction property, myself included, under contract for years in some cases. It is frustrating, but if you can hang on and get with it, it's often very worth it, even with a higher interest rate by the time you do close. But I think the construction delays are getting better. I think builders have gotten smarter over the last couple of years. It wasn't good for them to have 2 years of construction time and supply chain costs going crazy. So a lot of them have stopped pre-selling homes so far out in advance, and they're only selling things that are already going vertical and being built. So, you know, there's less of that happening than before. Okay. How long has RealWealth been around and how many members are there? RealWealth was founded in 2003. And we have the current count. Last time I looked at it, we were over 68,000 members. So we're one of the first in this space, Christopher. You know, it really was born out of Kathy's radio show. You know, she spoke with Robert Kiyosaki. She had Robert Kiyosaki as a guest on her radio show back then, and he urged them, hey, now's the time to sell your property in California and buy it for more fundamental property in boring markets like Dallas at the time, if you can believe it. And Kathy and Rich did that. They went to Dallas on their own and built a team there. They studied the market. They looked for property managers. They, you know, found a specific area, an up and coming part of town. They found the brokers. They did it. They bought 5 properties in DFW and talked about it on the radio show. The fact that they had done it and that these homes were newer and nicer and great cash flow. And so naturally, the listeners of the radio show wanted to know, hey, we trust Kathy. She knows this stuff. We trust her judgment. Who did she use? Who are your contacts? Refer us, connect us. And that's the concept of RealWealth Network. We do the same thing today. We go out into the markets, we build the team, and then we introduce you to them. We refer you to those teams. We were one of the first to do it. Okay, Nick says, do you recommend working with a buyer's agent when purchasing turnkey properties with the property teams? You know, here's the thing. Working with buyer's agents, that's usually an expense that's covered by the seller, right, in a traditional transaction. The turnkey operators, the reason they're offering you the prices that they are, the reason they're doing the turnkey model is to eliminate some of those commissions. So in most cases, a turnkey company will not pay the commission of your buyer's agent. You can ask them and see, but you know, in most cases they won't. Nick, if you feel like you want to have your own agent representing you, then you could choose to pay your own buyer's agent. If you ask me, that might be how it should be personally, if you benefit from a buyer's agent. But no, most of our teams, you know, you aren't working with a buyer's agent. Now, in some of our markets, our property team actually is acting as your buyer's agent. So for example, our Dallas team, they are not a traditional turnkey provider. They are brokers and they have a buy box in that particular market. So the deals that they are providing, a lot of them are on the MLS. Or they are deals that they found through other, you know, local builders or local contacts. And so they're actually acting as your buyer's agent in that scenario. And so to get access to their inventory list, which they've curated, you know, you sign a buyer's rep agreement and they're acting on your behalf. So it does depend a little bit on the team. What is your opinion of using business credit to purchase via bypassing financing, buying low and selling low to the next investor? I don't know about this strategy. Kevin, there's probably some other context that I would have to discuss here. Again, we specialize in a passive strategy. We specialize in, you know, putting 20% down on a property, buying in the traditional way. We're less concerned about capturing gaps, you know, buying low, selling high. We don't really care about that as much because we're playing the long game. So I probably wouldn't be the best one to give you guidance on this particular strategy, though I'm curious. There's certainly so many great strategies. I would be a little bit concerned about buying a property on a business credit line, but I'd have to know more to give you any valuable feedback. It sounds like from the way you phrase that question, you've heard from someone who's done that. So I might encourage you to talk more with them about the strategy. Can you do a lease to own for renters? Yeah, Susie, absolutely. I think that's a great potential exit strategy. if you want to eventually sell a property, you have a tenant in there and they eventually want to buy the property from you, you could certainly arrange a lease to own situation. Susie, now the reason we want to hang on to these assets is because they make us money over time. So it would certainly have to be something down the road, right? An exit strategy that I might say, hey, this could be an easy way for me to avoid make-ready costs of having to get a property ready to go on the market. Usually, like when I've decided that I want to sell a rental of mine, if I know that the lease term is coming up, I might ask my property manager to talk with the tenant first and ask them, like, are you interested in buying this property potentially? The owner's thinking of selling. And I've had some conversations happen with tenants based on that inquiry. So it's certainly a possibility. What proportion of your members break even or are cash flow positive after all costs? Well, this is a hard one to answer, Christopher. I'll tell you about mine. I mean, I've bought a lot through RealWealth, and almost all of them cash flow better than I thought they would. And the longer I hold them, the better it gets. I think that is true for the vast majority of our members. We just wouldn't be in business very long if that wasn't the case. I think this whole break-even thing for us is newer. We have always been hardliners against, break-even. We want the cash flow, right? But the reality is everybody is seeing less cash flow today than they used to. So if cash flow was your, if that was it, if that was all you were seeking, like you might be buying fewer deals now or having a harder time getting those deals. So yeah, I mean, all the deals that I see with our teams, with an exception of maybe one or two teams, and I'm happy, Christopher, to have a conversation with you about what I see. I look at all the deals these teams have every week. Some specific markets have been more impacted by the appreciation that they've seen over the last couple years. And so I've watched their performas, the cash on cash return margins get thinner and thinner and thinner. And I still recommend those markets to specific types of investors because I've seen how the cash flow grows over time. I got to tell you, Chris, some of the properties that I hate the most in my portfolio are the ones that baited me in with high cash on cash returns on a pro forma. I was thinking that was the way to quit my job sooner, was go buy the highest cash on cash return properties I could find. But you know what I personally learned? That asset class is more volatile. The cash flow comes and goes and comes and goes. And with one tenant turn or one expensive maintenance item, my cash flow could be cannibalized like that. And then when I'm looking at the rest of the way that real estate pays me, the principal pay down, the appreciation, the tax benefits, all of those ways were really dinky because the home didn't appreciate very much. I didn't have hardly any principal pay down because the loan was, $70,000. It's a dinky loan, a very small hedge against inflation, not a whole lot of tax benefits. So I started in my own portfolio seeing that these high cash on cash return pro formas just didn't get me growing the way that I wanted to. It was really the hybrid or growth hybrid markets that I was like killing it in. I was seeing, year one, maybe it was 5 or 6% cash on cash return. But then, 5 years in, I'm, killing it. I'm at 12 or 15 or 20, and some even better. I mean, it's just, again, the time principle I think is really important. I went on a rabbit trail a little bit there, Christopher, but I just want to encourage everybody to think a little bit broader than just cash flow. A lot of our investors have made a ton of money buying from these teams, hanging on with these teams, and even the ones that didn't have the best cash flow in the very beginning. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I just deleted one without reading it. Sorry. Do you plan to continue accumulating properties or trade up to larger projects and buildings? Jeff, this one changes. These are goalposts that move for me a lot personally. I know I talked about being clear about your goals, but I like to dream a little bit too. I do think that I realized at some point as I was getting more and more scale that I don't know that I want 1 billion doors. I don't know that I want 100 doors. I just feel like that's a lot to manage managers for. It's very complicated tax returns. I don't know, it's just a lot. So I personally have started seeing the benefit of okay, maybe there would be a point where I would start paying down properties that I already own rather than continuing to scale. I'm not there yet. I still want to grow and continue to scale. But then this idea of like commercial property, you know, triple net leases, that to me does seem like that's a little bit of, you know, the big boy space where there's maybe larger margins to capture, maybe a little bit more passivity because you can have on-site management, or again, a triple net lease, much easier tenants to manage. So, you know, it's certainly something that I've kind of kicked around and I'm curious about. If you're curious about commercial property, we have recently onboarded a commercial broker. So we found a national commercial broker who specializes in working with regular mom and pop investors like us, and we can connect you with that commercial broker, and he can get you connected with a national database of these larger deals so that you can kind of analyze it. We also, Joe Torre actually put together an amazing curriculum for commercial property. If you want to get a copy of that, just email your investment counselor. We'll share that curriculum with you. He even put together a commercial investors checklist. So let us know if that's something you're interested in. I don't recommend it for beginners though, Jeff, generally. I mean, I'm of the thought, start small, but if you're growing and you want to kind of, there's a bigger deals, we've got some additional information to with. All right, I think, okay, here's one more. Okay, Tommy, this is not a novice question. This is a genius question. He wants to know my thoughts on purchasing a primary residence versus purchasing an investment property. I am hearing of so many more people doing this, especially in these high cost markets where primary homes can, you know, they're extremely expensive, even with only needing to put 3 or 5% down. You know, it can be a tremendous down payment to get into a primary. And then if you only put 3 to 5% down, your mortgage costs could be huge. It could make more sense to rent in those markets. Yeah, you don't get the appreciation, but if you choose to rent in those high cost markets and instead go put the money you do have into more balanced markets that you can afford and build a portfolio of rentals, I think that's a really excellent strategy. I talk to, you know, people in California who do this, you know, young, again, professionals that are grinding in really fun, high cost of living cities, but they want to start building an investment portfolio. I think absolutely don't buy this paradigm, this belief that owning a primary is like the status symbol. Who cares? Go own a bunch of rentals. Personally, I think that's more impressive. Certainly it could make more financial sense. I mean, that's the way I would probably encourage you to look at it, Tommy, is look at the finances of it, make it a math problem, and decide. If your only decision to buy the primary in the high cost market is, well, but I'll miss out on all that appreciation, I think that is probably your answer. Like, don't just think about appreciation, like think about the fundamentals. Let appreciation be the cherry on top. Don't strap yourself every month and risk financial ruin so that you can maybe get some appreciation in a high cost market. It's sexy, I know. I want the $100,000-$200,000 of appreciation in a year too. Who doesn't? But it could go down that much in a year too. So I think it's a great thing to be considering, Tommy, and you would not be the only one who had considered such an idea. I think it's very common, and frankly, I think it's going to be more and more common. We've been renters in my adult life most of the time because we move so much. When we move overseas, or when we lived in Boston most recently, for example. We lived in Monterey, California, so very high cost markets. We rented there. And we bought rentals in Ohio, in Alabama, in Texas. So it really just depends on the market, but I'm certainly open to it. All right, guys, this was super fun. I really am so appreciative of your time. I clearly love this stuff. We all do. We want to help you love it too. So don't hesitate to reach out and connect with us. In the meantime, we've got a ton of resources to keep you busy and engaged and learning on our investor portal. So we hope that you'll use it. All right, guys, take care. See ya.